Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, if anyone thought coming up to Canada, eating some poutine, whatever else they do in Canada, and ice, I don't know.
I hope you're enjoying Canada more than the Cubs thus far.
It has not helped the Cubs to go to another country. The offense is still lost. I have no clue how to explain what's happened here in simple terms. In simple terms, you could just say it's baseball, but I don't know. This offense has disappeared yet again. You can't just. I don't think there's an easy explanation as far as, well, this is what the Cubs do. You added one of the best players in baseball, and still here we are in the midst of a funk. This is getting rough to watch, and it's getting it's feeling eerily similar to years past, where we're like, oh, it'll end, it's gonna be fine, and you just kind of wait for that moment.
Yeah, I think in our coverage and on our show here, we try to be reasonable. We try to be measured. We try not to overreact or ride the roller coaster, as many players like to say over the years. But there are also times where you have to sound the alarm bells, and I think it is now time to do that. That we have seen enough. There's enough information. There's enough history, frankly, kind of lingering in the back of everyone's heads, that this level of performance is unacceptable, and that the negativity is really kind of enveloping this team right now. And before we get into that, I'm just curious, like, what is kind of the atmosphere or the mood in the clubhouse in Toronto? I know they're not necessarily going to panic the way that others on the outside might, but it also seems like, just watching them play, seeing the moments of frustration, listening to some of their answers, reading your stories, that like it is seeping in now, that they know this has gone wrong.
Yeah. PCA didn't have a lot to say. He struck out in a big moment, bases loaded, 2 outs. I believe it was the 7th inning. They're down 4-1. That's where, the first 2-3 months of the season, he was coming through in those moments. I mean, I don't even want to act like he had a bad July. July was his best month offensively. So he's been coming through in those moments more often than not, and he hasn't in the last 10 days. And it was, I wouldn't describe him as, I would, you've seen him in those moments. He's not he's not going to elaborate. He's not going to, he's pretty grumpy, and that was PCA. Council was pretty, straightforward. We're not gonna pout. We can't, we just gotta, he knows this offense is good and it'll hit. That's kind of been his mantra during these past 10 days, and he's sticking to it. There's no woe is me, I believe was the quote. And he's right. You can't, if you're sitting there sulking and dwelling on it, then what's the point? Dansby, I think, is usually the best in these moments. He gives a pretty he expounds well, and he's pretty honest, and he said, I asked him, is there any chance anybody's tight up there? Like, you guys don't hit for a week, and then does that happen? Is that real, or is that something we project onto you guys? He's like, no, it's kind of human nature. You see guys struggling, you want to step up, and maybe that makes you a little, like, that you put pressure on yourself. I also asked, like, is there anything you can do? Like, is there, like, do you do team meeting, or do you do the opposite? Do you forget about baseball? Do you go off and like enjoy Toronto tomorrow? Like, what is it? And he's like, we do all those things. He's like, we have a meeting before, like, there's a hitters meeting before every series, and we talk, and we're good about that. We're a team that talks a lot. And he's like, and we also are close. He's like, that's what the plane rides are for, the bus rides, team dinners. He's like, maybe we need to switch. He's like, maybe you're right. Maybe we need to switch it up. Maybe we need to push a different button. But he's like, but it's not like I think sometimes people will like project their anger onto this team, onto their team that they're rooting for when they're not going well, and say they don't care, they're not trying. None of that is true. We know that, right? Like we know that they care. We know that they're trying. They're not executing. They're not getting the job done. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I thought last night that clip of Kyle Tucker just flinging his helmet into the dugout was like an eye-opening
Yeah, yeah.
sequence there of like when even he is feeling it and expressing it in that way. It was kind of, I mean, shocking is too strong a word, but just very surprising after knowing his reputation in Houston, seeing how he handled everything, his first, introduction to the Cubs, his first few months in Chicago. He was kind of the classic guy to just kind of drop his helmet, take off his batting glove, just kind of very, very smooth player, a very calm, even keel player. And when he does that, like that to me symbolized a lot of what's going on with his team. And I think a lot of the angst and anger is not even just with this team, it's just kind of an organization thing. And it's also a, several year sort of window here of thoughts creep back into people's heads of how the team faded the last couple of years, the missed opportunities after the 2016 World Series, just like all of it for a brand like the Cubs and a city like Chicago just gets magnified.
Yeah, no, it stood out to us too, and we didn't see it, or at least we didn't notice it live. But then there was that video, and what we did notice was when I say we, I mean the us reporters out in Toronto. We did see Tucker hitting on the field before the game,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which he doesn't do.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that happens very often. So they're trying different things. I mean, he's trying. It's not like he's just sticking with the tried and true methods. He's he's trying to figure it out. So he's putting in some work. But yeah, that was an interesting scene. You don't see that with him. So frustration. I mean, and it's valid. He didn't have good at bats yesterday. Good results. Um, I do. I do wonder if these like with him specifically, like is it pressing? Is it is it the finger? Like if it's the finger, then you got to figure out what to do about that. You discuss a 10-day IL. I don't know. I don't know. With him, like I thought he was coming out of it. Maybe at some point in St. Louis, not that long ago, just a few days ago. Maybe yesterday was just a bad day and we're overreacting to that. But I'd like to, you really want to see like a stretch of him getting like, a week of just hitting the ball hard, whether the results come or not, like line drives and fly balls hit hard for a week. And then you'll start to feel good. And right now we're just not seeing that with him.
Yeah, and obviously it goes without saying that Kyle Tucker is going to be a free agent at the end of this year, and there's been no signs or hopes that the Cubs are going to extend him, and that there's like real doubts about the organization's willingness or appetite to extend him long term. And this year, the Cubs did not go all in, but there's was a lot of urgency to it. And when your best player goes really, really quiet at a time when your rival up north just gets crazy hot, like it's going to be an issue. And it's not just Tucker either. Just a lot of quiet at bats. Seiya Suzuki's been a very good player on some very forgettable Cubs teams. That's kind of been, and we have not seen that. We have not seen him in October. We have not seen like a wire to wire kind of dominant season. And there's time still for him to get back to who he was earlier this year. Certainly he has the talent for it, but I think that's a question mark. We always knew Pete Crow Armstrong like probably wasn't going to have like a 50-50 season or whatever. So I think some of that's the one where like he's played so over his head. I feel like his production has gone so far beyond what the Cubs could have realistically hoped. I think it's hard to get too worked up
Yeah.
about that. But it's like, yeah, it's Dansby, it's Ian Happ, it's Michael Bush has had a really nice year, but all of a sudden, he's slumping a bit. And when you add all that together, it's just like this team needs that, because I still feel like the bottom could really fall out still with pitching. I know the pitching's been better like recently, but pitching just always seems so fragile. This team is supposed to have this great foundation of position players, and it just has not shown up recently.
Yeah, there were moments where I thought like each guy was kind of like coming out of it. Like I said, Tucker, I thought he had some hard hit balls in St. Louis. Like they were both singles, I believe, but I was just like, okay, that's a good sign. They were line drives. Michael Bush had that monster game in St. Louis, I believe it was. Yeah, the Saturday in St. Louis. Seiya had the final game of the homestand, and you just thought, here it is. Okay, one of these guys is going to get going, and it just hasn't carried over to the next day. All right, Patrick, let's take a quick break and talk a little bit more about what's going on here.
The dog days of summer means it's time for the boys of summer to kick it into gear, and the best way to cash in on your baseball IQ is with DraftKings Sportsbook. Never bet on baseball before? It's simple. Pick a guy to go yard, hammer some live odds mid-game, or just ride with your squad and hope for the best. No spreadsheets, just vibes and dingers. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Patrick, we didn't really specifically talk about yesterday's game. That's Tuesday's game yet, but it is kind of like I was talking to some of the Toronto beat writers. Like Jose Barrios hasn't been that great lately. Kind of just an okay pitcher. He didn't have a good game. He didn't do anything special, and he held them scoreless. I think the Cubs drew 7 or 8 walks by the end of the day. They only had 4 hits, all singles. But they were 0 for 9. Was it 0 for 9 with the runners in scoring position, or did they get 1 hit?
Maybe 1 for 10.
It was 1 for 9, left 10 men
okay.
on.
Okay.
Yeah, and 7 walks, 4 hits. Like you can't. How do you draw 7 walks and score 1 run? Like this offense should be doing so much better. That's the type of thing where they were beating like what they did on Saturday against St. Louis are the types of things they'd been doing earlier in the season against average pitchers, average and below. They really do well. It was the top of the top pitching that they would have okay to below average games against, and that's normal. It's completely normal, apparently, except if you're the Milwaukee Brewers, who have kicked Paul Skeens' butt twice at American Family Field. What that team is, I think, I don't want to spin this and act like there's no reason to be upset. But what that team has done is making everything worse for the Cubs. What the Brewers are doing is making this seem so much worse. The Cubs, here is the good news. The Cubs are the top. I think they're tied with the Padres end up winning last night. They did. So they're tied top technically by percentage points. They're in first place in the wild card. The Cubs are. But the Padres and Dodgers are tied for first place in the West. And then the Cubs are 3.5 games ahead of the Mets for the final spot in the wild card, and 5.5 games ahead of the Reds to be out of the wild card. That's not, that's a pretty good spot to be in, all things considered. But they have I go back to what Jed said. Here's one other positive. They're not so we talk about pressing, we talk about looking bad. I don't think they are, because they're swinging at the right pitches. What we've seen in the past is they get way out of sync and they just chase. And the numbers bear it out. I remember looking last year, they were just this team chases way too much. And then they organized the strike zone and they started hitting later in the season. They're not chasing. They're one of the best teams when it comes to swinging at pitches in the zone. And they don't. And it's not like they're one of those non-swinging teams that takes a lot of strikes too. They are aggressive in the zone, and they leave those pitches that are bad. And there are so many examples lately where you see these center cut fastballs just sitting down the middle of the zone and they miss them. And it's been Kyle Tucker, it's been Pete Crow Armstrong. It's what is happening? That's the confusing part. But I go back to what Jed said about, when you're in these slumps, you don't know when they end, you don't know when they begin. I think that's the unsettling feeling about it, because we went through this last year where they kept saying, we're going to hit. And it'll just be, it's only been 2 weeks. It's only been 4 weeks. And then it was 2 months. So I don't know when this is going to end. I believe it will. But each day that passes, I have to shrug my shoulders and say, okay, you can't put it past them. You can't, you never know in baseball. How long will this end? Will they cough up a huge wild card lead? They've already coughed up a huge division lead, and they're 7.5 games back. We don't even need to talk about the division right now. It's put the division to the side, and then maybe if they get on a run and Milwaukee cools down, then we can start talking about the division again. But right now it's pointless.
Yeah, I think you had sent the text in one of our various text chains about the Theo quote of "our offense broke" somewhere along the lines or along the way, whatever that quote was, I believe from 2018 when the Brewers caught up to them. And that's not a part of their daily hitting meetings or, pre-series hitting meetings, but it's in the back of our minds, the fans' minds. Organizationally, there's still enough people around to have remembered that. And I think there's no way to quantify this, but I think a place in like Milwaukee just plays with a different sort of freedom, and that when things start rolling for them, or when things, kind of turn down, they can just keep moving. And I think there's just a different weight that teams like the Cubs play under. And that's not like an excuse or rationalization. It's not really provable, but I think you're kind of seeing that play out this year. And the Brewers, they make a lot of people just look bad of just, Quinn Priester, a Pirates first round pick, bounces around to the Red Sox, and all of a sudden he's lights out here. And there's just tons of, Andrew Vaughn, the worst team of all time, last year's White Sox. So he couldn't get it going on the South Side. And all of a sudden he shows up there and people are throwing his name around in the MVP discussion. I think small market teams or even medium market teams that do not succeed. I'll point at the Pirates again. How come the Brewers can do this on this payroll? Certainly in Chicago, there's a sense of why in the Cubs organization, why is this organization spending, $100 million more on payroll, and they could be double digits games behind the Brewers by the end of August. Craig Counsell it's irrefutable. He is a good manager. He has the hardware, the experience, the record to prove that. But clearly he was just a piece of the machine there. He was not like the entire brains of the operation. It goes like that's multiple regimes, a lot of people, different departments, all working together. And so I think just the timing of this, you know, there are certain moments where it's okay to just like call it out and be like, this is unacceptable. And I think this is kind of one of those periods. It doesn't mean it's going to define the season, but like, we're not the types to, after every blowout loss, like, you know, rip everyone. But I think we've seen enough, and like, this has been kind of meh long enough that it's fair to just call it out and be like, they have to get a lot better, a lot fast, or else the season's going to be a massive disappointment.
Yeah, I want to talk about something you said with the Brewers, and then we can kind of discuss what is there a solution here that's not just sticking with the norm. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back.
Hey, we love ripping slab packs on Arena Club. I just ripped one in a Ruby pack. Those are fancy schmancy, Kip. And I pulled a Matt Shaw 2023 Bowman Draft Aqua Lunar Crater Refractor card. And guess what? Guess what? I got a little offer. You get the instant offer right away. Okay. So they're offering me $121. Sell it back, and then I can get a new slab pack. What do I do?
I want to see this thing. Hold on. Look at that. That's a beautiful card. You know what? I think that's a safe bet. I think it's going to make you a little bit of money. I think the more big league time he gets, I'd almost take the deal, though. I'm in it for the chase. I like opening more packs. I think that 121 can buy you a couple more slabs to open. And I think you keep chasing until you get someone you really like. But that's the best part about it for me.
That's right. You can sell it back, $121, and then open up another slab pack. Use the code FOUL to receive 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase at arenaclub.com/foul.
I think the Brewers and how they're built is a good lesson for fans, for all of us, in the sense that we don't know anything, and that screaming and yelling about the decisions a team makes before you see how it plays out is probably a little foolish, or you know, we just don't know how some of these things are going to go. I don't think the Cubs could get away with playing someone like Isaac Collins on a regular basis, and the guy's been awesome. He's a triple-A Rule 5 draft pick. He's 28 years old, and he's finally getting some real playing time, and he's been amazing. I don't know if that kind of guy can get playing time in Chicago. Like, how do you even get to the point where you're allowing him to play outside of injuries? If the Cubs traded for Andrew Vaughn, what would the reaction be from us, from fans, from other media members? Like, I don't think anybody would be like, "Oh, that's a sharp move. They're thinking outside the box." And it would just, you know, it would be like, why are they going with these failed prospects? They never worked. There's just so many examples. I mean, the team traded their closer, their dominant closer in the offseason, and now you know, they have I believe one of the pieces got them their third baseman, Caleb Durbin. Devin Williams is having an awful season, his first awful season in like pretty much forever. Like, those types of moves, the Cubs, like, can they get away with and not be excoriated for it? I don't know. I don't think so. Like, I know we'd rip them if they're trading away good players, you know, just because their contracts are close. They're probably going to trade Freddie Peralta this winter. And so it's just like, look, I'm not saying that the Cubs should act that way. It's just a really interesting way. It's like, these are the types of things that you say, like, you can't do that. Like, what are you doing? They let Willy Adames walk. Oh, Willy Adames is the heart and soul of that team. He gets so many clutch hits. He's an average player now, and got paid, and he's just an average player. Like, that's a sign of an incredibly well-run organization. And maybe this is the bottom line, Patrick. I think you can do some of these things that It's a little harder to do with the scrutiny of the media and the fans in a bigger market. So you can kind of go under the radar and do these things. The second thing is, by this point, that front office has earned the benefit of the doubt. They like, I don't know if like every Cubs fan would be fine with it if the Cubs were churning things out like the Brewers were and getting so many things right. But there'd be less of an outcry, maybe, if they were behaving in this manner, but they were getting things right so often. The Cubs get things right every now and then. Like Matthew Boyd's a hell of a signing. That wasn't a celebrated signing, and that's a hell of an addition. Brad Keller is a great NRI. There are some good stories here, but right now it doesn't feel like there are many good things happening. So it just struck me when I wanted to look up where Isaac Collins was from. I'm like, are you kidding me? AAA Rule 5 draft pick? That's insane.
I love the Miz because if the Miz was in the Cubs farm system, like if he had 2 good starts at Myrtle Beach, people would want to put like a statue outside Wrigley Field for the guy. And all of a sudden, like he goes under the radar and just, becomes an all-star under very unusual circumstances. But, it's this moment to me, I think there's a lot of layers to it. I think it starts with just like Kyle Tucker isn't in a slump because the Cubs aren't spending beyond the luxury tax threshold. But I think just the overall tenor of this season began with the Alex Bregman sweepstakes. I realize Matt Shaw has been really good. We've talked about it, on our prior episode. But just this idea of the Cubs not quite going all the way and flexing their spending power the way that they had previously, the way that other teams do. I think this front office is very systematic, very organized, very rational, but clearly at this trade deadline, it seems like they went a little too far in that direction. That this might have been the time to color outside the lines a little bit. They did not. I also think we talked about it before, but this trade deadline exposed some of the gaps in the farm system. Like we hear about how great the farm system is, how healthy the organization is. And I don't know if the rest of the baseball industry really viewed it that way. Like not just the Cubs' kind of insistence upon protecting their future, but also other teams being like, not really moving the needle for them. And then it's what we talked about earlier, just until the Cubs like break through and get back to the playoffs and like Wrigley Field is rocking in October, I still think this recent history lingers. We're not talking about 1908 or, stuff that happened before we were born. It's just that this period of franchise history has been disappointing and that people, want to see more. They expect to see more. And, I'm sure Wrigley, there'll be 40,000 people at Wrigley this weekend. It'll be an amazing atmosphere against the Brewers. But like they want the on-field product to match that. And by and large, this year has gone very, very well. Like we're not losing sight of that. It's just that at this moment, you have to call it for what it is, and start to kind of push the panic button a little bit. Dansby talks about different buttons to push. Like, okay, you have this front office. They built this team. Like this is fully their system now from top to bottom. You have guy who was given the biggest contract ever for a manager. Push some buttons. Kyle Tucker, you want to make $500 million in your next contract? Like go out and earn it. Same with Pico Armstrong. You want to be a Cub the rest of your life? Like let's put even more pressure on this front office. I mean, Seiya Suzuki was signed to be part of the next great Cubs team. Like, those are just kind of the hitters. And I still, like I said earlier, I still want to see how the pitching holds up too. I think this stretch is going to be really tough. Javier Assad, it was the classic hey, once our guys on the injury list get healthy, it'll be like another trade deadline addition. And then you see like, oh, wait, he hasn't played all year in the majors. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. You know, this could just be a blip, but right now it feels really rough, and it's like I think the big thing for me is like you see signs of it ending. You see a game like Saturday, you see a game like last Wednesday, and it doesn't carry over. There's no building on those games and really turning the corner. I do still think it'll happen. I don't think this is like a full-on collapse, but moments like this, it's hard to not feel kind of like, I don't know. This is a little worrisome. They certainly need to turn it around. We'll see. We're recording this on a Wednesday. We'll see if they can get back on track and win a couple games in Canada and come back home against a Pirates team that they should be able to beat up on. Who knows if they can do that. I don't know what the weather will be like at Wrigley this weekend either, but we'll see. Maybe in a week from now they'll have had a great end to this road trip and are looking and are playing well against Milwaukee and they beat up on Pittsburgh and we'll be feeling completely different about things. We'll see. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks, everyone. Take